Just like to declare the meeting open. Just welcome you all here in attendance. This meeting is being live streamed, and by being in attendance you are giving permission for your image or voice to be live streamed according to the city's live streaming policy. I would now like to call upon Deputy Mayor to welcome us to country.
Thank you, Worship. I'll begin by acknowledging my elders past and present. Ngalak yeni kurang ngala noich niji nonga boja. Nogumut jerper niji nana kwabrak nonga boja kurlong. From the beginning of time to the end, this is Noongar country. Noongar people have been graceful keepers of our nation for many, many years. Jinin encouraging jerper niji wern nonga boja gala maya border. Look, listen, and understand and embrace all the elements of Noongar country. This is forever our home. Hello and welcome. My heart is happy as we gathered here tonight and meeting on Noongar country. Thank you.
It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all here, and before commencing proceeding, I would like to acknowledge that we come together tonight on the traditional land of the Noongar people and pay my respects to elders past and present. Could I now call upon Councillor Sue Kearney to do the dedication?
May we, the elected members of the City of Kwinana, have the wisdom to consider all matters before us with due consideration, integrity and respect for the Council Chamber. May the decisions made be in good faith and always in the best interest of the greater Kwinana community that we serve.
Leave of absence previously approved. Is nil. Public question time. In accordance, we do have one question from a member of the public. In accordance with the Local Government Act 1995 and the Local Government Administration Regulation 1996, any person may, during public question time, ask any question. In accordance with Regulation 6 of the Local Government Administration Regulations 1996, the minimum time allowed for public question time is 15 minutes. A member of the public who raises a question during question time is to state his or her name and address. Members of the public must provide their questions in writing prior to the commencement of the meeting. A public question time form must contain all questions to be asked and include the contact details, and the form must be completed in a legible form. Please note, in accordance with section 3.45 of the City of Kwinana Standing Orders Local Law 2019, a maximum of 2 questions are permitted initially. An additional question will be allowed by the presiding member if time permits, following the conclusion of all questions by members of the public. We have one question from a member of the public. Mr. Dodds, would you like to come forward and state your name and your address?
Yes, thank you. My name is Keith Dodd. That's up there as Kevin. And I reside at 36 Stefanelli Close in Wandie. And we've been residents at that address for some 30 years. Can I speak to the questions?
Yep, so if you want to actually ask your question.
All right. And I apologise, this was done in some rush, so there are a couple of spelling mistakes in the form, and also I think the contact telephone number was absent as well, which is for the record 0429 349 232. The 2 questions that I'm posing, and there are some other, I gather some other questions that may have been lodged, identical to these ones. And the first question is, will the council allow an extension of time for submissions to be made by affected ratepayers in relation to a planning application to build a 30-metre telecommunications tower at lot 149415, house number Dehay Road, Wandie? The current period for submissions is from the 17th of April 2024 to the 8th of May 2024. However, letters from the council dated the 18th of April 24 were not received until the 23rd of April 24, therefore reducing the submission period. The second question I have is, will the council determine this application rather than departmental officers? This is a very contentious issue amongst the residents and poses a significant risk to the local community in relation to a number of factors, including fire risks.
So in a very simple response, yes to the first question and yes to the second question, though I will just have the CEO just elaborate on that though.
All right.
Or maybe Mrs. Cook.
Through you, Your Worship, in terms of the submissions, yes, we acknowledge there was an error in the timing with respect to the period for submissions. Typically, the statutory advertising period is only 14 days, and we allow 21 days for that, mail to be sent out. But in setting out the 8th of the 5th, it was not accurate, so we are quite happy and comfortable to have submissions come in within that extended 5-day period. With respect to the council's determination, the delegations that the council have set require that any new telecommunication towers that are established or considered within the city would need to come to council for consideration. So what that means is that the council officers will undertake the assessment. They will then consider all the submissions as well and put forward what submissions can be considered, what are valid planning grounds, because not all the grounds in the submissions can be considered from a planning point of view. So they will be taken into account, they will be documented as part of that report that comes to council. So every submission and a summary of those submissions will be part of an attachment to that council report. So you'll see all those that submit will see the summary of their submissions and how they've been responded to by the planning officers. The officers will then make a recommendation to council in that report, and then the council will then have the opportunity to debate it and discuss it in chamber, and they will obviously make the final determination as to whether they support the officer recommendation or they wish to change the officer recommendation in any way.
Right, thank you. Just one other question in relation to the extended time period. How will the council communicate that to ratepayers or residents? Because if you are extending it by 5 days and you again write to residents, the same situation will occur. You'll say you've got 5 days extension, but by the time the letter gets there, that 5 days would have disappeared.
Yeah, it's a challenging one because what we might need to do is actually undertake a letterbox drop.
Yep.
And do that as soon as we practically can and provide you with that extra time. We say 5 days, but we would be, it really is, we can take submissions right up until the point that we determine the application. So it's just to allow the officers time to take those submissions on board, assess them and build them into the actual council report. So we'll take that into account and look at the time frame that we can extend it to so that we can get it to council in a timely way.
So if I'm hearing you rightly, even if someone was to lodge a submission after the closing date, that would still be...
We'd still have
be
to
considered.
consider it, yeah.
Right.
Right up until the time that the council determines it. So even if, say, the matter was being determined tonight and somebody lodged it yesterday, we would need to bring that to the attention of council through a memo to say there was a further submission and this is what this submission says, whether it has any bearing on the recommendation whatsoever.
And in actual fact, the submission could be presented the evening that that item is actually dealt with by council.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for those the 2 positive responses to the questions.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other questions. Where are we at? There is nothing on item 6.1. Do any councillors have a petition? Presentation? There is no deputations. 7.1 minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 10th of April 2024. Is there any additional information? Do councillors have any questions? Would someone like to move that way? Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Acker. Would either councillors like to speak? Speak against? Put to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Do any councillors have any declarations of interest? Neil? Request for leave of absence? Neil? There's nothing on item 10, nothing on item 11. Item 12.1, Chief Executive Officer's Performance Remuneration Review. That will be dealt with as a confidential item behind closed doors. There is nothing on item 13. Item 14.1, the Bullamara Aboriginal Consultative Committee. Is there any information? Mr. Fisher?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I just want to give a brief background of our journey we've been on with the Bullamara committee. So obviously the city has been on that journey with the Aboriginal community, and obviously working with the community to build a relationship, and also kind of working through the process of reconciliation with our community. So this has involved over that period of time, lots of meetings, lots of discussions, lots of building relationships and building trust. And really from that point, we kind of built quite a strong advisory group, and the advisory group is at a stage where they've matured, and they're probably at a point where they feel like they want to transition into a committee of council where they can have greater influence and I suppose provide advice and information to councillors where they can make the best possible decisions. Just want to point out that this process has been a long process. It's probably taken us about 12 months to get to this point. And I think the reason for that, we could have rushed the process and rushed the engagement, but it was important for us to really collaborate with our current advisory group and really ensure they were comfortable with it being a committee and what did a committee involve and so forth. So we've had two reports come up. One report in May last year, where we considered establishing the committee, and that was endorsed by council. And then we had a report come to council in January where council approved the terms of reference, which was an important step. So tonight, obviously we've got a third report coming at the council, and really this report is to appoint councillors upon the committee, and is also to approve the dates of the future meetings, and thirdly is to approve the sitting fee for the Aboriginal community that are involved on this committee of council. So in previous report we've provided a range of a sitting fee, but we've landed on a fee which really links up with the current best practice. So what we're finding is that if there is a committee meeting, that will probably go up to a period of sort of 2 hours tops, but that sitting fee also includes all reading time and so forth. So that's in the report tonight. Thank you very much.
Do councillors have any questions? Councillor Penny?
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship. In regards to the sitting fees, can I ask a question about how those sitting fees are allocated internally? Previously, this committee had a function which was around celebrating Noongar culture and heritage in the region, and now that that's shifted to a consultative committee, will our budget allocations be made out of a consultative budget, or is this still coming out of the city's reconciliation initiatives? I think it's important to note that the shifting mandate of the committee, that they'll be consulting on matters of interest across the city, planning matters, development matters, and that that sits out of the remit of cultural celebration and reconciliation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, so we have allocated a budget to pay those sitting fees. It comes out of an operational budget. And really, you know, and I don't think it matters where that budget comes from, but obviously we've allocated that money to have those fees there. So and yeah, I think that answers your question, Councillor Penny.
I might just clarify that question. My point is that the funds to support this committee shouldn't be taken out of initiatives that are to support the local Noongar community in terms of Noongar celebration. So it has a different focus now and a different mandate. So I wouldn't want to see you know, resources that were for that purpose used for this consultative committee, and that there was a separate allocation of funds, as you would with any other you know, significant consultation that the city would undertake, that committee has that respect and authority.
I think the CEO has a response.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. These are additional funds that are being provided into the operational budget, so they are not coming out of any current activity or out of the Reconciliation Action Plan. So they are additional funds which are being provided.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick question on the time of the meetings to be scheduled of 10 a.m. Could the city describe, I guess, the thinking behind that particular time? Is that the best time to maximise participation for this particular committee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So 10 a.m. is the current time that the Boolamara Advisory Group currently meet. And what we're doing at the moment is transitioning that group into the committee. So the whole group feel as though that's the best time for them to meet at this particular time. But that's something that we can always assess and address if there is committee members that have difficulties attending at that time.
Any other questions? So we're looking for a nomination of 2 councillors. So who would like to nominate Deputy Mayor? So we have 3 nominations for 2 positions. What's the best way?
You have to do preferential voting for a committee.
Interesting. Okay, so we will need to vote. We may need to pause briefly while we prepare the ballot papers. Someone like to move that we recess for 5 minutes? Moved, Councillor Wood, seconded Councillor Sargent. All those in favour? Against? Carried. The recess will go through till the 5:53. Just to stop complaining.
The other one is the exec one. All you do is appointing the HMR. So unless there's any questions, you've got to just hope that.
Yeah, but it's the nature of the
I don't even know if it needs to be confidential.
Okay, so could someone just move that we resume the standing orders? Moved Councillor Wood, seconded Councillor Kearney. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Each nominee will be given an allocation of 2 minutes to talk about why we should choose them. I say 2 minutes because otherwise we could still be here at 9 o'clock. Okay. Deputy Mayor, you can go first.
Thank you, Worship. I've been involved with the Bullamara group since first coming on the council, and I did have some input and providing input into that committee prior to that. I was currently the co-chair with the previous mayor, and I saw that as an opportunity to guide the community through the reconciliation process and assist the council with how do we best come up with ways to involve and engage the Aboriginal community. With that process has been able to educate the Aboriginal community about the benefits of working more closely with council, and with the interest in Kwinana around the developments and impact for the next 10, 15, 20 years. Some of the questions from the Aboriginal community are now relating to policy or some procedures or some actions that the council are involved in that may need some critical oversight from the Aboriginal community. And I feel that the elevating to an advisory committee of this nature and giving the Bullamara the opportunity to be able to contribute and the community to do that, I can still continue that role that I currently do in ensuring that the Aboriginal community are fully aware and can make a fully informed prior consent around decision making and contributions to the city of Kwinana more broadly in relation to Aboriginal issues that affect not only their families but the other families in the community, and also being involved and engaged with the broader community of Kwinana, because we are one of the most multicultural communities now in Western Australia, and I feel that it's important that they had a representative that would be able to project that voice through in an understanding and respectful way. Thank you.
That was like exactly on 2 minutes. It's before the bell. Councillor Penny.
Thank you. My interest in this committee stems from a long history and current process of working alongside of the local Noongar community. I'm interested in the topics which are raised and believe I can be a support to this committee. I also acknowledge the experience and perspective of my colleagues, Councillor Wimmer and Councillor Rouse, who's been on the committee for some time and taken the committee through quite a strong journey. I also acknowledge that elected members can sit in, observe and be a part of these committees without necessarily being elected. If I do not, if I'm unsuccessful in the vote, I would like to raise my hand to serve as a proxy to Councillor Wimmer and Councillor Rouse. And if that's not an option, I will continue to attend the meetings as a member of council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rouse.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Penny, for your interest in joining this group. Basically, my interest stems from the fact that I've been on the Bullamara since the first day it was formed as part of our Reconciliation Action Plan, and I believe I've have had valuable input over that time and gained the trust of most of the members on that committee. So very proud that we're a council that is progressing our consultative committee into an actual formal committee of council. I believe we may be the first local government to do so, and I would just like to continue this journey to be a part of that new committee and follow through on all the actions that we've taken up till now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rouse. So everyone will be provided with a ballot. So technically, if it's preferential voting, every box needs to be numbered. So, okay,
Yeah, just select two.
1 and 2, not.
Just two.
We've made, yeah, if it's preferential voting, you can't use a tick.
No, it's just one, just select two.
So it's not true preferential
It's not
voting.
true, preferential.
Could I have your pen, please?
No, it's just two, select two.
You can just cross it out.
Just two, just select two. Two ticks.
Just select 2 people by indicating a tick on your form. 2 ticks. If there are any errors, please cross them out and place another tick next to your tick. That's right, you can re-tick it if required. You're in trouble, Barry. Based on that extensive process, I can announce that the Deputy Mayor was elected and Councillor Rouse was elected. Congratulations. Is there an opportunity for a proxy for this committee, or?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
So if you're still happy to be a proxy to either Councillor Rouse or Deputy Mayor, then if we can just put that in the minutes as well. So the motion is do council have any further questions? Would someone like to move this way? Move Deputy Mayor. Seconded Councillor Sargent. Deputy Mayor like to speak? Councillor Sargent.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Feasy. I just want to say to the city staff, the Indigenous elders of our community, that I'm so proud to see the work that you have done to bring this level of council collaboration with the peers of the Indigenous community and the reconciliation journey, and how strong this demonstrates that. And I would also just like to comment to anyone on this particular committee. I chose not to nominate solely because I already deal with you in my day-to-day life, and I think it would be great to have some of the other councillors have some more exposure with that, but city staff especially, this is very special, and congratulations on work well done to get to this point.
Thank you, Councillor Sargent. Would anyone like to speak against the motion? No? I'll put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. I think this is another significant step forward in reconciliation from our city. There is no, yes there is. Item 15.1, statement of objects and reasons and proposed differential rates and minimum payments for 24-25. Is there any additional information, Mr. CEO?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors have any questions? No questions? Would someone like to move that way? Moved Councillor Acker. Seconded Councillor Rouse. Would either councillor like to speak? Councillor Rouse?
Just briefly, Your Worship. Obviously been a long process to even get to this stage. It starts straight after we approved the year before budget. It's not just figures plucked out of the air. It's long-term involved, and we've got with planning for the future and our long-term financial plan. I'm sure we'll be getting a lot of interest from this again this year, and there'll be lots of submissions for us, and we will consider every one of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rouse. Would anyone like to speak against? Put to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. Nothing in item 16, 17.1, Wandie District Centre, Precinct, Structure Plan, Agtel Road, Wandie, consideration of submissions and recommendations to the West Australian Planning Commission. There is an amended officer's recommendation, which is the amendment is very brief. Item B, it's adding the word as revised at the end of attachment I, is that correct? And adding as revised after recommended modifications on item D. Everyone should have already received this. And then an addition of note that officer's recommendation has been amended at point B and D to include changes to the schedule of recommended modifications at attachment I to include DBCA's requirements for a kangaroo management plan. See revised attachment I. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is in relation to the amendment to which in part adds the kangaroo management plan. I imagine this item may be an interest to some in the community who may be listening or after the fact, especially when it mentions consideration of options to reduce kangaroo numbers prior to development commencing. Could the city talk to what that activity entails?
Through you, Your Worship, they would need to provide a management plan that identifies how they would do that in the face of future development of the district centre. We don't prescribe how that's done. That's for them to demonstrate and get advice as to how that's done, and DBCA obviously would need to be referred to that kangaroo management plan with that information and be satisfied with the approach that's taken. That's not really a city officer role in terms of determining how it's done.
However, I believe there is some precedent on what does work and what doesn't work. Any other questions? Councillor Brown?
Just perhaps around the definition of that, noting what we just heard, is a standard option in that case, I guess, culling of kangaroos in these instances, or is there other standard practices, say, moving? I'm not seeking to understand, I guess, as well as support questions that may come forward.
Through you, Your Worship, they will have to come up. There's a number of options they could do. They could sterilise, they could relocate, they could cull. There's a number of options, and it'll be dependent on the numbers that are there. After they do further detailed studies around kangaroos that are in that location, and that would be to the DBCA's satisfaction. So we are not the body that will determine that. We will provide some advice and support, but it will be DBCA that determines whether the approach is humane, I guess, and appropriate for whatever the issue is in terms of the numbers and the scale of the kangaroos within that location.
And I guess my point as far as precedent, I mean, there's been a number of cases recently in other local governments where this is needed to occur, and some of those situations has worked and some haven't. So I would imagine that DBCA have a clear idea of what they would recommend, Mrs. Cook, based on previous experience, I would imagine.
Quite possibly. Again, it depends on the numbers, where they're coming from. Because they do, as you may be aware, kangaroos do move around quite a significant region. So it will be about understanding their movements and then what would be the best approach. But as I said, DBCA will determine that based on what the proponent experts come up with.
Any other questions? Councillor Penny?
Thank you. The report notes that council does not object to this proposal, but there are matters requiring resolution by the WA Planning Commission. Some of these items include, the applicant's response to Main Roads Western Australia's comments, applicant's response to the Department of Fire and Emergency Services comments, Western Power's comments which have not been received by the City, Department of Biodiversity and Conservation and Attractions comments which have not been received by the City, the applicant's response to the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation comments, a landscape feature and tree retention strategy which needs to be prepared in accordance with the City's local planning strategy. Ideally, council officers should have all the relevant information available to them to make effective recommendations. Can you speak to the process of acquiring this information and why the City hasn't been able to acquire this information before putting forward the recommendations? Part one of the question. Part two is, can you speak to time constraints around this? Thank you.
Through you, Your Worship. Basically, there's a process with every structure plan around referring the plan once the City is satisfied with the basics. So there's a basic requirement to provide a certain number of technical reports with the structure plan to ensure that there is enough there that satisfies the City that we can advertise it, it's robust enough, and send that out to those relevant agencies. In this instance, there's been, in some parts, as the recommendation refers, there's been some situations where the information has gone out to those agencies. Those agencies have a certain time frame to respond. Some have responded well outside that time frame. Some have yet to respond. And that enables the opportunity then for the applicant to then go back and look at those responses and respond accordingly to the nature of those matters raised by the actual referral agency or department. So in this instance, you can see from the recommendation it's a mixed bag in terms of we've had responses, but we have not had the applicant's response to those issues, or we have not received those responses. And whilst we'd like to think everyone can stick to their statutory timeframes, they don't always do that, or they haven't received the referral. So there's a bit of that as well. So this has sort of been caught up in that sort of space. That being said, we have been working with the applicant around extension of timeframes for the consideration of the precinct structure plan. So we did request a first extension of time frame through the WAPC for this consideration, and they accepted that. However, when despite where we're at now, we requested another extension of time frame to enable full consideration of all those matters before we go to proceed with the council report and then forward the structure plan to the WAPC. However, the proponent has refused that, and the process requires the proponent to accept it so that the WAPC will give us that extension of time frame. So in this case, we are limited. We have to provide a position. On balance, however, our review of what we have, and based on the information from the first element, Main Roads, DFES, and those that we have received, there are no fatal flaws in what they're presenting. It's just really around applicants the applicant having a need to then respond and provide further detail or further information, but nothing that would mean a significant change or any alteration in any sense to the structure plan. And as you can see, the structure plan is that high-level document. It's the blob map that really details high-level land use, access into and out of the precinct, having regard to its context, having regard to the constraints around easements, etc. So it is that high-level document, and then will again allow further detail to cascade down. So I hope that's answered your question.
Does anyone have any other questions? No. Someone like to move that way? Moved, Councillor Sargent. Seconded, Councillor Acker. Would either councillors like to speak on the item? Anyone like to speak against? Put it to vote. All in favour? Against? Are you against, Councillor Penny? Item carried. And I will say that the community, certainly the existing community of Honeywood and the rural parts of Wandie, will certainly welcome some facilities into their community. I think there was an expectation when the developer sold a lot of that land that this particular development would come on stream much faster than what it has. So. Very good. Minutes. Okay. I might move the next two items in block unless anyone has any questions of item 18.1 or 18.2. No? Would someone like to move 18.1 and 18.2 in block? Moved Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Wood. Would either councillor like to speak in relation to these two items? Anyone speak against? Put it to the vote. All in favour? Against? Carried. There's nothing on item 19, nothing on item 20. Is there any late or urgent business? Reports of elected members, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, nothing to report out of the ordinary, Your Worship.
Councillor Acker.
Nothing to report, Your Worship.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just briefly, on Tuesday the 16th of April, I joined fellow councillors at the latest Australian citizenship ceremony at Medina Hall. Once again, like to congratulate, I think it was 70 of our newest Australians. Thanks.
Councillor Kearney.
No, nothing to report.
Councillor Penny.
Nothing to report.
Councillor Rouse.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just like to say that today I had the honour of representing the city and yourself, Your Worship, at the Bertram Primary School Anzac Day service. I'd just like to say what a wonderful, respectful bunch of students they had there, and commend the student councillors who emceed and presented at the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rouse. Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Mayor Feasy. Again, I just wanted to mention, like Councillor Brown, the citizenship ceremony. Again, another fantastic way to welcome more people choosing to be part of our community in a more meaningful way. The other thing that I've done, council business, that I found quite exciting since our last meeting is working through the applications for the business grants, and I'm looking forward to sitting with Councillor Rouse and Councillor Brown to be in my very first grants committee, so very excited about that. Fantastic work to the grants team in the background that have compiled that for us, so thank you very much. And I'm very excited next week to sit at the Communities Industry Forum on behalf of the City of Kwinana. And just before I finish, I'd just like to remind our wonderful community that may be watching at home that tomorrow the RSL at the Kwinana War Memorial, or the City of Kwinana War Memorial, will have a service at 6 a.m. and at 10:30 a.m. and I believe it says 5:50 now. I had recorded 6 a.m.
I believe
don't know
dawn
if
is
Mayor
at 6, but I believe you need to be there at, I think the community being told to get there at 10 to 6, but I believe there's some entertainment from 5:30.
5:30.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Wood?
I've performed all those duties required of me. I attended the Medina Cultural Centre Elders meeting along with the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Penny. The Elders had many questions that were answered, plus some taken on notice. It was a very friendly and informative meeting. I also attended the citizenship ceremony at Medina Hall, where 70 people became new citizens and 17 nationalities were represented. As always, it was a very happy occasion. Previously, I attended the Kwinana Heritage Group's open day at Smirks Cottage, where the Heritage Group are doing some really excellent work and are to be commended.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. There is nothing on item 23, mayoral announcements. Just a couple of things. Could I just commend the economic development team for the business breakfast that was undertaken on the 11th of April. I also attended the Medina Aboriginal Corporation's Elders Morning Tea along with Deputy Mayor and Councillor Wood. And Mr Fisher, could you tell us whether we have found a replacement for Sarah Jane now?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor, we had a new starter start Monday. Her name is Jaden Counsellor.
Great, so we'll roll her out to the MAC on a Thursday morning.
For sure.
I'm sure the elders will have many questions for her. What else? So I also attended the citizenship. Along with the Deputy Mayor, we attended a luncheon at the US Consul's house with Ambassador Caroline Kennedy and also Admiral Caudle. Admiral Caudle is actually the 5-star admiral who is the head of the entire US fleet. So it was a fairly significant lunch that the Deputy Mayor and I attended. The ambassador, for those that are unaware, is actually JFK's daughter. So it was actually a fairly significant lunch, which was very well attended by a number of other mayors from the South Metro councils. I didn't attend the Ride to School Day at Honeywood, but I certainly have had some great feedback from the principal of Honeywood in relation to the staff that attended and facilitated that morning. So thanks to your staff, Mr Fisher. Today I attended Honeywood graduation Anzac Day service, which was quite well attended. And I think Councillor Sargent's pretty much summed up tomorrow is Anzac Day. The city has been able to bring back a breakfast for the community, and we have the Kwinana Knights Senior Football Club will be doing bacon and egg burgers from the completion of the dawn service. So head on down and commemorate Anzac Day and have a bacon and egg burger afterwards. There is one item behind closed doors. Could someone move that we go that way? Move Deputy Mayor, seconded Councillor Wood. All in favour? Against? Carried.